I celebrate in my family is Christmas, and what we celebrate in North America as New Year's is really, for me, it's really a time of deep contemplation and reflection for me about where I've come from and kind of where I'm hoping to go. And so it's kind of a middle place before the new year, and New Year really being time for new beginnings for me. And because of that, I'm kind of thinking about some of the ideas I've talked about this year, and wanting to sort of circle back um, to the notion of questions. And we've talked a lot about, or I've talked a lot about the idea of questions and importance of questions and asking good questions. And I just wanted to throw out, just so everyone's aware, that the reason why that is so important is because of stories, because of the stories that we tell ourselves, the power of the stories that we tell ourselves, and the power of the words that we use. And so literally these questions that I think about, talk about, and kind of am engaged with all the time are really about how and which stories we elicit, not only from each other but from ourselves, and the kind, and reminds me of the powerful stories that we tell ourselves. And that can be in the form of many different things, including, like, for example, saying to yourself, I'm an idiot. Well, you say to yourself, I'm an idiot, you're doing something. And I talk a lot about the non-neutrality of language. Non-neutrality, language is not neutral. When I say to myself, I'm an idiot, I'm doing something that I believe is rather important. And I'll also throw out the idea of just saying, I'm a great person, and I'm a good person, and I can, those, if you believe those things, that's great. But if you take that up as a practice just because it's supposed to change what's going on for you, I have found, both myself and many people, that it's not useful, because ultimately, if you tell yourself that and you don't believe it, then it just comes across as a lie. And so that's not usually, well, I don't think lies are ever helpful. And so there's an alternative. It's not, those aren't the only options, to either say things to ourselves that are possibly to be described as hurtful and negative, or say things to ourselves that seem like they're positive. There are many different things we do. The most important thing, I believe, to begin with, is just to consider the power of the language that we use. And that when I say to myself, I'm an idiot, I'm doing something that's very powerful. Because what that does is, even that, if I think about, this is a thing that I'm doing, and this is a story that I'm telling myself about who I am, then I can go, oh, well, that's interesting. Or at least, I mean, there's an invitation there to take that up and go, oh. All right, well, what kind of stories do I want to tell about myself? What is the story that I want to tell of myself? How do I want to think about myself? Or those are a variety of different concepts that come up. Just to start, if we start with the notion of the stories that we tell, the language that we use, that the language that we use is powerful and important. Like, for example, this video call thing just came up for me to start a video call with somebody. And so I'm drawn into that. And the reason why I'm drawn into that is because the people that created this thing that just popped up on my screen know that people are drawn into these sorts of things. And I was drawn into it because I'm like, ooh, who is this person? I have no idea what that was about. It's not anything that I kind of set up. So it's clearly an advertisement for me to engage in something. But the idea that advertisers are fully aware that that those kinds of things engage us is something that they exploit to try to get us to do stuff that we might not otherwise do. But it speaks to something that's even more important than that, because for me, it's like, oh my gosh, this says something about kind of how they know we are, kind of how we are, that we're curious, and we're like, oh, what's this? And we're like, those sorts of things. So right there, I'm starting to tell a different story about who I am. And I'm like, now I'm talking about myself as this curious person that can be engaged. Now I could go, oh my God, I was sucked into that because I'm an idiot. Well, that's actually, for me, it's really not that. It's not because I'm an idiot. It's because I'm actually like, well, is there some conversation I could be having with somebody? So So then it's like, oh, so it's not because I'm an idiot, it's because I'm like drawn in by possibilities to have interactions with people. And um, so that completely repositions me in relation to this response, same response, but it's a different description of that response. And so taking up these kinds of descriptions is something that I'm obviously a huge fan of. I support it wholeheartedly and talk about it a lot, but really I'm interested in circulating these ideas as much as possible, which I'm doing right here, right now. So long and short of it is that I'm going to be talking a lot about story, about the value of kind of, that's why it's called narrative therapy, because the narrative is sort of this notion of language and how we use language, the effects that it has and the power that it has, and our ability to take back that power and to take it up um, in the context of whatever we want to take it up in the context of. But that instead of sort of what can be a culturally embedded sort of supported default, I got sucked into that because I'm an idiot. Um, it can be transformed into, oh, actually, no, that's not really what happened. And what what my description of what happened seems more consistent with my experience of it, then I'm already starting to redescribe who I am. So anyway, something to think about for today. That's Possibility Saturday for this day, and I'll be back tomorrow talking about something else. Hope everyone